Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet calling it quits after 16 years together. All right, so here's the big question. Were there signs of trouble in paradise?
From the outside, Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet's marriage seemed untouchable.
It's very hard. It's
Yeah.
very hard. It's very hard on people, and I don't want them to have that kind of pressure.
A Hollywood fairy tale built on love, family, and admiration. But behind the smiles and red carpet moments, cracks were quietly forming. And now, after 1 year of silence, Jason himself has revealed the real reason their union fell apart. What happened between them? Was it success, distance, or something far more personal? Jason's shocking words left fans stunned and raised questions that demand answers. In this video, we'll trace their love story from its magical beginning to its heartbreaking end, exploring the hidden tensions, revelations, and Jason's ultimate confession. From serendipity to forever, every great love story begins somewhere, and for Jason Momoa, the story started long before he ever met Lisa Bonet. As a boy growing up in Hawaii, Jason was glued to the television when The Cosby Show aired, mesmerized by Lisa's portrayal of Denise Huxtable. To him, she wasn't just another actress. She was his dream girl, the woman who embodied beauty, style, and individuality. Jason would joke with friends that one day, somehow, he would marry her. It sounded like a childish fantasy. Yet, decades later, that fantasy would walk into his life in the most unexpected way. The year was 2005. Jason, still carving out a name for himself in Hollywood after early roles in Baywatch and Stargate, Atlantis, was far from the megastar he would later become. Lisa, on the other hand, was already an icon. She had lived through fame in her teens, navigated heartbreak, and raised her daughter Zoe Kravitz from her first marriage to rocker Lenny Kravitz. She carried herself with a calm confidence, a serenity that seemed worlds apart from Jason's energetic, larger-than-life personality. In almost cinematic style, they met and fate intervened at a jazz club in Los Angeles. Jason looked across the room and felt time become suspended for him. He later confessed that when she turned her head and glanced in his direction, he almost passed out with fright. He really had to gather his thoughts to walk toward her. There was no script, no practiced one-liners, just a gush of pure admiration. Something in his candor tickled Lisa, and she, too, was feeling it. Their chemistry was instant and undeniable. From the start, they were an unlikely match. Lisa was 12 years older, a grounded spirit who valued stillness and depth, while Jason was wild, playful, boyishly charming, and overflowing with energy. On paper, they were opposites, but in life, opposites collided with a force neither was strong enough to resist. Jason brought laughter and sunshine to Lisa's life, and she bestowed wisdom and stability on him, which he never knew he needed. From Jason, she learned to embrace spontaneity. From Lisa, Jason admired her deep-rooted strength. Together, they complemented each other. Come 2007, the bond turned into something more. That summer, the couple had their first child, Lola, a daughter. A year later, their son, Nakoa Wolf, was born in 2008. Once a bachelor with Hollywood dreams, Jason found himself suddenly bathing in fatherhood. He had a perfect definition of purpose, with Lisa and the children anchoring him through the mad auditions and countless rejections, tearing him from the list of stars within those big roles. In a way, Jason and Lisa's relationship made it possible to keep most things out of everyone's view within their family. Their love was not the kind that made it to red carpets or tabloids. Their passions are stolen in back-road trysts, family getaways, quiet days at home. Outsiders pictured them to be untouchable, absolutely one couple who shared something other than Hollywood's graces. It was back in the year 2017, more than 10 years after they met, that Jason and Lisa decided it was high time to tie the knot. Their wedding had been very tiny, since it was done secretly with about 6 friends, family included. Fans could not believe it when, later on, this news leaked. Jason had made it very clear in all his many interviews that Lisa was the love of his life, the queen indeed. He credited her with grounding him, as well as with really being the foundation of the career and confidence upon which he had built. But even fairy tales can hide shadows, and theirs had cracks that grew too big to ignore. Cracks beneath the surface. Every marriage faces challenges, but for Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet, the difficulties crept in quietly, hidden beneath years of admiration and devotion. At first, the cracks were small, barely visible to the public eye. But over time, the pressures of fame, the pull of different lifestyles, and the weight of unresolved emotions began to widen the gap between them. What once felt like a perfect balance was slowly tipping out of control. The biggest shift came with Jason's meteoric rise to stardom. For years, he had been working tirelessly, trying to break through in Hollywood. Then came Game of Thrones, where his role as Khal Drogo made him a household name. Not long after, Aquaman launched him to global superstardom. Overnight, Jason went from being a promising actor to one of the most sought-after leading men in the world. With that success came relentless demands, grueling shooting schedules, international press tours, and an endless stream of public appearances. His life was no longer his own. It belonged to Hollywood. Lisa, however, had already been through the whole mess of fame. She had spent her younger years as a starlet, having been catapulted into public attention while starring on The Cosby Show. The highs, the probes, and the pitfalls of being a celebrity have all been experienced by her. By the time Jason came along, she didn't want any part of that world. Instead, she valued peace, privacy, and that grounding rhythm of a family life in Los Angeles. While Jason reveled in red carpet chaos, camera flashes, and flashes, Lisa was a bit more aspirational of tranquil mornings, private dinners, and constancy. Initially, their differences were manageable. Jason would hop on a plane to go to work while Lisa held the fort, making sure the kids felt safe and secure while he was gone. Every opportunity would see them come together, enjoying the time they had free. But the more Jason progressed in his career, the more the distance, both physical and emotional, took a toll on the couple. He was literally in constant movement, molded around the whirlpool of opportunity, while Lisa's life was unaffected by everything but settled and fixed. The longer this continued, the more pressure it exerted on their marriage. Lisa's enduring ties with her ex, Lenny Kravitz, added another layer to the problem. Their co-parenting of Zoe Kravitz was propped up as an ideal mature existence. As for Jason, he had made a public endorsement of Lenny and formed a close bond with him. But under the smiles and happy public interviews, some say that Jason sometimes felt a bit of a shadow in this. Lisa's past was something that never really faded far off into the background for Jason. It was not just an ex-husband he was dealing with, but also a lifelong friend and basically family. Respectful and admiring, Jason still found himself questioning from time to time if it was not Lenny, his interference and involvement, to whom he was sharing Lisa, in ways that made him uncomfortable. This was another battle of parenting style. Lisa was rigid. She wanted rules and structure so her kids could be secure. Meanwhile, Jason was the epitome of a free spirit, an eternal adventurer. He believed in exploration, risk, and spontaneity. What had once brought charm to their relationship began, instead, to breed conflict. To Lisa, at times, Jason's way of parenting looked pretty irresponsible. To him, her way of being restrictive. One argument after another followed, slowly chipping away at the bond that they had once had on display effortlessly. And then, 2020 brought the pandemic. The years of physical separation had covered the deep chasms Jason left behind. When lockdowns forced families together into the same four walls, these cracks became visible for all to see. What could have been a moment of reconnection instead became a lens of difference. Comfort for Lisa came in the way of routine and reflection. Jason felt trapped, as if crammed in a cell, without the continuous motion that had characterized his life. Their surroundings began to feel like a prison, with the realizations pouring in like a torrent, which perhaps they had evaded for far too long. Around this time, Jason's fury was rising and was on the verge of eruption. During one such encounter, in the heat of the moment, he was quoted to have said, even to the shock of his near ones, to him, "She's disgusting." He later backpedaled from that statement, saying it had nothing to do with Lisa's looks. It was rather the crumbling distance that concerned him. The woman who had once been his beloved, in recent times, had grown unbearable. He suspected she had begun to feel the same, and perhaps this realization cut deeper than anything that could have been said in any argument. Then came the moment that turned whispers of trouble into undeniable reality. The shocking announcement. For years, Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet had been Hollywood's gold standard of love. Proof, it seemed, that deep connection could survive the chaos of fame. They were admired not only as a couple, but as a family, raising their children with warmth and grace. Which is why, when their announcement came in January 2022, it struck fans like a lightning bolt. The couple who had once seemed inseparable revealed that they were no longer together. The news came not through gossip columns or paparazzi leaks, but through Jason himself. On social media, he posted a joint statement on behalf of both him and Lisa. It wasn't dramatic or hostile, it was thoughtful, carefully written, and imbued with respect. We have all felt the squeeze and changes of these transformational times, the statement read. A revolution is unfolding, and our family is no exception. We share our family news that we are parting ways in marriage. To the public, those words were shocking. Alarm bells ringing in everyone's collective heads and leaving all in confusion. Nothing scandalous, no accusations of betrayal, no messy details, but instead, maturity, even tenderness. Jason and Lisa framed their separation as part of a broader journey of personal growth, not as a bitter failure. In numerous ways, it is an antithesis to the contrived expectations the public has for celebrity breakups. Far from tearing each other down, they seem to be determined to prop each other up while walking away from the marriage. Dispersed with disbelief, fans surfed the social media platforms. What could surprise, many admitted, was that Jason and Lisa had been put up as ideals for sincere love in Hollywood. Watching their fairy tale come undone felt a little like watching the proverbial house of cards tumble down. If Jason and Lisa cannot make it, what hope is there for the rest of us? Wrote one fan. Their relationship had been aspirational, and the announcement left a void. However, behind the words rest questions. Why now? Together for the last 17 years and married for the last 4 years, the couple has undergone so much. What had finally pushed them to make the step public? Insiders have it that they were seeing each other as late as 2020, but preferred to keep it private because of the kids and to avoid speculation. The timing of their announcement, then, had less to do with a sudden collapse than acknowledging reality. The statement clarified that, even if their marriage was ending, their commitment to family remained unbroken. We free each other to be who we are, learning to become, Jason wrote. It is a line that suggested neither anger nor bitterness, but acceptance, that both had simply outgrown the version of themselves that once fitted together. They promised fans that their love for their children, Lola and Nakoa Wolf, was still the first priority. Still, the lack of explanation stirred the pot for speculation. Rumors began to circulate. Was it infidelity? Was Jason's work keeping him away from home? Was Lisa's close friendship with her ex-husband, Lenny Kravitz, coming into play? The theories on the internet grew increasingly dramatic, while Jason and Lisa remained silent, beyond the initial statement, not wanting to add gas to an already raging fire. This silence created a peculiar paradox. Their announcement was, in every sense, dignified, an example of two people gracefully separating. This, however, left fans clamoring for more, unable to comprehend how a love story that had seemed robust could come apart with comparatively little public explanation. Yet behind the calm words lay truths Jason wasn't ready to share. At least, not yet. A peaceful divorce, but lingering pain. By January 2023, what fans had dreaded was finalized. Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet were officially divorced. The filing came through a Los Angeles court, marking the end of a marriage that once seemed destined to last forever. Unlike many Hollywood splits, theirs was notably quiet, even graceful. There were no messy court battles, no explosive accusations, no bitter custody wars. On paper, it was the definition of irreconcilable differences. But beneath the smooth proceedings, the reality carried a deep and lingering sadness. In the documents, both Jason and Lisa agreed on every major point before setting foot in court. Custody of their two children, Lola and Nakoa Wolf, would be shared equally. Both parents were granted joint legal and physical custody, ensuring that neither child would be caught in the middle of their separation. Neither Jason nor Lisa sought spousal support or financial claims, a rarity in Hollywood divorces where fortunes often spark years of legal battles. Theirs was resolved with dignity and fairness, as though they had both agreed that the well-being of their family mattered more than anything else. Their friends gushed over how extraordinary their strategy was. They always put the kids first, an insider has said. It wasn't about winning or losing. It was about ensuring that their kids didn't feel any pain. Indeed, everything that Jason and Lisa did together appeared to be aimed at shielding Lola and Nakoa Wolf from the chaos that celebrity families are so often engulfed in. Their parental duties remained steadfast through the heartbreak. But while the world applauded the maturity of their split, those who knew Jason sensed a different story evolving behind the scenes. Outwardly, he maintained the charm that endeared him to fans, showing up at premieres and interviews with that famous grin. Yet, inside, he was battling grief. An amicable divorce is still a divorce, and for Jason, it was the end of what he thought was a forever love. There were times he acknowledged to friends his feeling of being somewhat lost. The house that had once felt like home when shared with Lisa no longer felt like the center of his universe. Every bit of family life, every shared breakfast and dinner or moment of quiet conversation was suddenly shattering. He remained the father, but with Lisa absent, the emptiness was undeniable. "I felt like part of my soul just died," he allegedly told friends in the early days post-separation. That pain wasn't visible to the lawyers, the documents allege otherwise, but was an indelible scar on the reality of living out his days. But for Lisa, there existed one great sorrow, hidden deep within her heart. More discreet by nature, those close to her would admit that she mourned her broken spirit, heavy with her impending divorce. It had been for Jason a long time coming. He had always shared, not just in her love of life, but also in sharing in love for the many trials and tribulations in partnership with raising the kids. The separation was entirely necessary, yet still an utter loss. The two had reconciled matters quite amicably, though the pain from their divorce remained intact. It looked to the outside world like a ceasefire, but in truth, these two people were subdued in their grief. Jason, in particular, had to wrestle with this double life. On one side, he was a global success. On the other, a man heartbroken. He had conquered Hollywood, but at what price? For so many years, he chased after his every dream with everything he had. Now, at the very top of his career, he stood alone, cut off from the only woman who ever anchored him. And it would take another year before Jason finally admitted what had truly broken them apart. Jason breaks his silence. For months after the divorce, Jason Momoa stayed quiet. He appeared at premieres, smiled for cameras, and kept the focus on his projects. Reporters probed, tabloids speculated, and fans begged for answers, but Jason offered only vague comments about growth and change. It wasn't until a year later, in a candid interview, that he finally broke his silence. What he revealed was raw, unexpected, and more heartbreaking than anyone had anticipated. The first thing Jason admitted was how dramatically his life had changed after his career exploded. "A few years ago, I was struggling just to find work," he said. "Now, my career is booming, and I barely have a moment to breathe." Success, he explained, had come at a cost he hadn't fully understood until it was too late. He spoke of relentless filming schedules, endless flights, and press tours that took him to every corner of the globe. "I'm living my dream," he confessed, "but it pulled me away from the life we had built. The more I chased success, the further I moved from her." Though there was physical space between Jason and Lisa, emotional distance mattered too. He admitted that in chasing the fame he had once wanted, he had become a different man, one whose being was consumed by the demands of Hollywood, one who was losing grip on the spirit of the man Lisa had fallen in love with. "Success changes you," he said in a barely audible voice. "I would sometimes look at myself and not recognize myself. And if I didn't recognize me, how would she?" Above all else, he said, his lady was about stillness, serenity, and the solid grounding belief of home. "She doesn't want to deal with Hollywood chaos," Jason said. "She doesn't care about red carpets and the premieres. She wanted simplicity, whereas I was living in a storm." What used to be their harmony, his fire, her calm, was now an abyss neither could traverse. The confession left even the interviewers appalled. Jason said there had been times he looked at Lisa and thought her disgusting, a word so shocking, brutal, and almost cruel that he went on to clarify it. "Not in the way people think," he said. "I mean, we became strangers. The way we saw each other changed. The admiration, the respect we had, it faded. And when that's gone, you start to feel like you don't know the person standing in front of you." Jason stressed that it had never been hate but heartbreak. He spoke about how respect had been at the root of their relationship. His respect for her brilliance, her respect for his passion. When that mutual respect faded away, love did not find a way to break into pieces again. "It wasn't about betrayal or fights," Jason said. "It was just one day coming to terms with the fact that we had grown apart. We were walking in different directions, and no matter how badly we wanted it, we couldn't force it." The fans who listened to his words felt mixed about them. Some were shocked by the fact of his closeness to his statement, while others hailed him for saying something most couples go through but never say. As if the divorce is not a scandalous thing in the world, Jason's reason comes with a painful human note. as a verification of a perfect love gone awry. Two lives not meant to be among each other anymore. His honesty was raw, but their story wasn't just about endings. It was also about what held them together. The power of family. Amid the heartbreak, one thing kept Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet grounded: their children. Divorce often leaves scars that stretch beyond the couple, but Jason and Lisa refused to let that happen. For them, Lola and Nakoa Wolf weren't just their children. They were the center of their universe, the steady force that guided every decision they made during their separation. Jason, in particular, often described fatherhood as his greatest role. In interviews, he called his kids his lifeline, crediting them with giving him strength during the darkest chapters of his life. No matter how busy his filming schedule became, Jason made it clear that he wanted to be present for Lola and Wolf. Whether it was flying back between shoots, FaceTiming them from across the globe, or taking them on set when possible, he did everything in his power to remind them they came first. Lisa, ever the grounding force, approached motherhood with the same devotion. She created a home where their children felt safe, stable, and free to express themselves, even as the family was going through profound change. She shielded them from gossip and speculation, ensuring that what unfolded between her and Jason never spilled into their children's sense of security. Those close to Lisa said her priority was always emotional stability, even if it meant putting her own feelings aside. They were distinguished from the rest by their concerted effort to remain good co-parents. They mastered the art of co-parenting without hurtful words. According to close friends and insiders, Jason and Lisa communicated better with each other co-parenting than many couples who stayed together. They would show up for important events together, celebrate birthdays together, and even act like a family, although the romantic part had died long ago. Jason's fathering duties extended to Zoe Kravitz, with Lisa's daughter from her previous marriage to Lenny Kravitz. Jason adopted Zoe into his family from the get-go. After separating from Lisa, he made it clear that his relationship with Zoe would not be altered. Jason took an active role in her professional life, celebrating her achievements and maintaining that fatherly role he assumed over the years. This is a testimony to Jason's loyalty. His conception of family extends beyond labels and legal bonds. Children are sometimes the glue that binds silently together. They remind Jason and Lisa of what is really very important. It was not fame or career or the differences between them. It was about raising compassionate, grounded individuals. They both understood that protecting Lola and Wolf from the turbulence of divorce was a more important issue than anything the two might be saying to each other over some minor frustrations. Neither was it easy. Nothing about divorce is ever easy, especially in the heat of raw emotions. But Jason and Lisa seemed determined to prevent their children from carrying the weight of the decisions they've made. Observed a close friend. They wanted to make sure that the kids felt they did not have to choose sides, and they worked really hard to make sure that Lola and Wolf knew they were loved equally by both parents. With their family as a lifeline, the question remained, was their love truly over, or was there still hope? What's next for Jason and Lisa? With their divorce finalized and their lives on separate paths, fans naturally turned their attention to the future. What was next for Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet? Would they move forward completely apart? Or could there be a chance for reconciliation somewhere down the line? Their story had been so unique, so full of serendipity and love, that many found it hard to believe it was truly over. For Jason, the future looked both exciting and uncertain. His career was still on fire, with roles in massive franchises, new projects in development, and endless opportunities coming his way. Hollywood wanted more of him, his charisma, his larger-than-life personality, and his bankable star power. Yet, Jason's own words made it clear that he had learned a painful lesson about the cost of success. He admitted that fame had taken him away from the life he once cherished. Moving forward, he hinted at wanting a better balance, pursuing his passion for acting while also being more intentional with his time for family. Friends close to him have said that Jason's priority isn't rushing into a new romance, but rediscovering himself outside of the chaos of stardom. While Lisa, conversely, found solace within her peaceful existence, away from the limelight of Hollywood, she had long since been at peace with a simpler kind of life, one in her own mind made manifest by her divorce. World premieres for Jason, however, meant back-to-earth activities for Lisa, concentrating on her house, her children, and her own inner peace. According to some, she is entirely uninterested in making a comeback. The future for her means serenity, rather than spectacle. She treasures honest relationships, creation, and stability. But that doesn't mean the relationship between Jason and Lisa has entirely vanished. They are still bonded by their children. The days, birthdays, key moments in their parents' lives, and daily parenting decisions still keep the two in contact, and they seem to do it with grace. Anyway, they will have birthdays, milestones, and daily parenting decisions that keep them in touch, and they seem to do it with grace. Jason continues to speak with admiration for Lisa, whereas Lisa, who is typically more reserved toward Jason, never made a public issue of any such thing. That really creates a sense of speculation. If this time can try and heal the wounds, then could there be a possibility for reconciliation? This is the wishful thought of some fans. After all, Jason had sworn that Lisa was his queen, his one true love, the girl of his dreams since childhood. Such stories are not simply put down. And, on the other hand, Lisa lived for more than 10 years in real love and real passion with Jason. Their relationship must have something in it, regardless of the broken romance. Could it happen again sometime, perhaps when life slows down? This is the hope fans are clinging on to, but neither Jason nor Lisa has spoken in that direction. From the look of things, they both appear to be happy, carving their separate paths. Jason has been, since young, heartily adventuring, throwing himself into environmental activism, new movie projects, and being a doting father whenever he is in. Lisa has alternated her stately, mellow rhythm of private life in the company of family, keeping Hollywood at arm's length. If Jason and Lisa had any future, perhaps it would not be romantic reconciliation. Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet's story is more than a Hollywood breakup. It's a reminder that even the deepest love can be reshaped by time, growth, and circumstance. What do you think? Was their split inevitable? Or could things have gone differently? Share your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more untold celebrity stories. And be sure to watch the next video on screen for more inside looks into the lives behind the headlines.